back to Ed's Garage. So today I am building a homemade body lift for my 2007 Hummer H3, and I just wanted to share how I'm doing it. So what I've done is I have purchased a piece of 2.5 inch ultra high molecular weight polyethylene plastic rod. So there's two ways you can do this. You can either use the rod or you can use the sheets. If you're using a sheet, you're obviously going to want to get a 1-inch sheet, and you're going to need a hole saw to cut out your circles. A hole saw resembles something like this. Now, I don't have a 2.5 inch hole saw. I could actually have done a sheet and then used 3-inch. I'm pretty sure 3-inch discs would still fit in there as well. The benefit of using a hole saw on sheet is that your center holes will line up perfectly. You don't have to worry about making sure that you're drilling out the holes to match the outside. The benefit of using the rod is swiftness, how quickly you can get it done, and the fact that you're not going to be wasting a whole bunch of material cutting holes out in a plastic sheet. So I decided to go with the rod, a little bit cheaper, I think. I paid $30 for the rod, and I got 2 feet, and I'm only going to be using about maybe 13 inches if you account for the thickness of the blade when cutting the rod. As for the bolts, we have a, in the truck right now, it's an M14. I'm not sure of the exact length. I think it's 140 mil. We need about an inch longer, so I went with 160 millimeter, 14 mil thickness, so an M14. The thread pitch is 2 mil, so M14 by 2 by 160 millimeters. The bolt grade is 10.9, so it's a 10.9 class hardness. So these should be more than strong enough. The original is also 10.9. So if you can't find 10.9, 8.8 should be sufficient. I guess unless you're doing some major off-roading or whatever. But while I will be doing major off-roading, I'm glad I found 10.9. But that was just happened to be what they had, so I managed to find them. These are a lot easier to find down in the States than they are in Canada, I'll tell you that, which is weird because they're metric. All right, let's get to it. I've gone ahead and I've already started here a little bit. I've cut this off nice and square. So what I'm going to do, I've got my jig set up on my chop saw here, on my radial arm saw. This is exactly 1 inch from the blade, and I'm just going to basically line this up, cut through it, and I'm going to do that 12 times. So essentially what you need for the Hummer H3 is 12 pucks and 12 bolts. Pretty straightforward. This will be on a non-alpha edition Hummer H3. The only other thing you need to do aside from putting these pucks in each of the body mounts is to slide the radiator shroud, the bottom of the radiator fan shroud. You got to slide it around to the top, so I'll demonstrate that a little bit later on. So I'm going to go ahead and start chopping these. Alright, so there we have our first 1 inch puck. Just going to double check the size here. There we go, 1 inch, perfect. And now I just got to keep doing that 12 times. Got a nice stack of 12 here. I had a few extra ones that I just wasn't satisfied on how they cut, but I bought a lot of extra, so I still have enough for a whole other truck, possibly. Alright, so there you go. So now I've got to drill holes in each one of these, and that's pretty much all there is to it. I've gone ahead and removed one of the body mounts already here. So this is the bolt. Now obviously this is going to be too short once we add the lift. This is the bottom rubber bushing. There's another rubber bushing that sits on the other side of the actual bracket that connects to the body, or to the frame rather. And then the other side basically looks exactly like this, except it's the opposite direction. this will sit right here, and then the body sits on top of that. So this one underneath, bracket in the middle, and then bolt goes all the way through. I'm going to go ahead and use a spade bit because it's the only one that I have that's big enough. This is a 5/8, which is a little bit bigger than 14 mil, but it's pretty marginal, and I think it's okay if this is allowed to move a little bit inside there. That'll make it a little bit easier to get the bolt through and lined up properly. And even when it is on, the Daystar lift kit is actually 2-inch, which is actually smaller than this diameter, which is kind of funny. Those pucks are 2 inches wide, if I remember correctly, the Daystar kit anyway. And even these are 2 1/4. So this, a little better because it sticks out on the sides. Alright, let's drill some holes. Alright, so I've gone ahead and got my spade bit in place. I mounted this jig here so that the pucks can be quickly put in, because I got 12 to do. So all I got to do is just drop it in there and fire it up, drill a hole, and flip over to the next puck. So nice, quick, and easy. Let's get this first one done. Alright, once it's almost all the way through, we'll stop, pull it out. Sorry, just trying to do this with one hand here. Get it cleaned up a little bit. Lots of plastic in there. Get it in the other direction. A little easier when I got two hands. There we go. Nice clean hole. And ready for the next 11. So I've got all 12 of my pucks with a few extra pieces for good measure, just in case. These are the ones that didn't cut so well. This was my test piece for the drilling the hole. And it was one of the pieces that didn't cut all that well. I've also got a little bit extra here as well. So if I wanted to, if I know somebody who has a vehicle that could use a 1-inch body lift and can do with 8, maybe 9 pucks, I've actually got enough for another body lift if it's only 8 pucks. Worst case scenario, buy a little bit more of this stuff. It was super cheap. So now that I've got all of my pucks cut and drilled, I've got all my bolts ready to go. I have washers for the bolts as well, because the original bolts had the little flange on the end. The new ones don't. So definitely want to have washers in there. So the first thing we're going to need to do is move that radiator shroud out of the way. Alright, so under the hood of the Hummer H3 5-cylinder, whether it's the 2006 with the 3.5 or the 2007 and newer with the 3.7, what you're going to notice on the top of the fan shroud, there's 2 little notches right here, or bumps. So what we're going to do is we've got to take, I think it's this thing right here actually. It looks like it's clipped in. Yeah, it's clipped in. So we got to take this. Oh, I love how easy this is. And you slide this around. That's the first step. We need to continue going further to get it all the way around. Mine's a little tight for some reason. There we go. Okay, alright, there we go. So now that is all the way upside down, so we just got to drill a hole in here so we can put a bolt there, and then that'll lock it into place. The spare bolt and nut box, and I've got myself a nut and bolt that should fit perfectly. I'm actually kind of happy about this. I found one with a lock washer on it, so that'll help stop it from rattling itself out. I'm going to go ahead and mount that in there now. Got my nut and bolt in there. this can no longer slide at all, so she's safe to lift. So of course, before we are able to lift the truck, we've got to remove all of the body mount points on one side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the passenger side, front one right here. So there are 6 in total on both sides, of course. So there is number 1. Number 2 is, let's see if we can find it here. Number 1 is right on the front. Number 2 is right behind the wheel. Number 3 is right between the rear door and the front door. And you can see I've already removed this one. This is where I pulled that one bolt from. Number 4 is right in front of the rear wheel. Number 5 is inside the rear wheels. And number 6 is right near the end, right there, right beside the shackle for the springs. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run an impact driver on all of those and pull them all out. Okay, I could probably need 2 hands for all this. Woo! Alright. There's one removed, came out with the sleeve. That's a little concerning, because that means that sleeve is probably rusted in there. So that's going to take a bit of work to get out. Alright, next. Alright, this is the one behind the front wheel. Come on. Alright, I'm going to do this and get back to you. A little bit tired now. I got them all out. So, one thing, a little bit of a trick. If you are removing a bolt and it gets stuck at a certain position and you've got your impact driver or whatever on there, in order to get it out a little bit easier, put a 15 mil around the head and pull down while your driver is turning it. Helps to get it out. Alright, so this is the only trouble one. We now need to take this out. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to put this over top of the vise and then hammer on that side. So we're not going to clamp the head of the bolt in or anything like that. Just kind of resting it on there. So I got somewhere to hammer it. It's going really easily. So this could be very difficult, but on mine it's actually going really easily. So very happy. Alright, I'll be right back after I get all the bolts. And I found that it's actually not all created exactly the same way. I'll show you what I mean here. So all of the bottom rubber bushings are exactly the same with the exception of one. So keep in mind that probably has to go back in the same place that it came from. And I also noticed that not all the bolts are exactly the same either. So these are the 6 all from the passenger side. You'll notice one is just a touch longer for whatever reason. That's probably, oh no, that looks the same there as well. So the good thing is that the 160 mil bolts are, you can see, pretty much exactly an inch longer than the longest bolt's thread. And that's what's important. This little bit here is not used anyways, so these should work fine. And if they are a little bit too long, they can be cut with a hacksaw as well. This one, the smaller one, diameter one, basically goes right behind the front wheel at this point here. So in case you're wondering. Also, the sleeves, the tapered bit goes up, so the sleeve sits in there in that direction. You can leave these in. You don't necessarily have to take them out if you don't want to. However, I opted to take them out so I can clean them up because they're kind of a disaster. So I'm going to try to clean them inside and out and hopefully reduce the potential for more rust buildup in the future. Pretty good inside and out. And what I'm going to do before I actually install these is I will coat them in lithium grease, and that'll hopefully prevent any further rusting, or at least mitigate it. Time to lift the body. I want to point something out here. It's almost like GM was thinking ahead here. So they've got a reinforced spot right here on the body. It's just a little ways back, about 3 feet back from the front tire, and you'll notice it's right beside a welded spot on the frame here. I'm not sure exactly what that's for off the top of my head, but anyway, so this is a reinforced body mount, so you can actually lift right here safely. It'll lift the body off the frame. So I would recommend use a piece of wood in between your jack because you don't want to ding that up. In this case I'm using a 4x4 to raise my 4x4. Okay, so that should do there. That clears everything else, and it's in the middle of that mount spot, so that'll work. Alright, and then just start slowly cranking up the body. Start to lift the body. You're going to notice that the frame's going to come with it at first, and that's because you're basically lifting all the weight off the suspension, so the frame is going to get pushed up with the body for a period of time until it starts to separate. Making sure that you've got a rear wheel chalked on both sides. Oh yeah, this is kind of creepy, but I can start to see a separation there now. There she goes. Alright, once you got about an inch in there, that's when we're going to go ahead and try to slide the puck in. The first one I'm going to try to slide in is the one right at the seam between the front and rear door. And it looks like I still need to go up a little bit. Let's try the one behind the front tire. Alright, going to need 2 hands for this. A little tip, if you're doing this in a garage, oops, you're going to have to, yeah. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in. This is the second one now. First one is in place in the front. Alright, so lined up nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some lithium grease on this. Get that back into place. Got a bit more lithium grease on there. Inside. Okay. Base goes next. Alright, so initially I'm not going to tighten these all down yet. I'm just going to kind of get them a little bit tight, and then I'm going to come back and retorque them to 75 foot-pounds, which is what is the spec on it. So yeah, just going to get it kind of seated there. Good enough for now. I'll put in all the other ones, so I got 4 more to do, and then what I'll do is I'll lower the jack and then tighten these down to 75 foot-pounds. Guys, if you've got this mount in here, it's the one by the front and rear door where they line up, and you're just at this point now, the one in front of the rear wheel, and you're trying to get it in. If it's a little bit tight, You can't really jack this up more because now you're jacking up the whole thing. So a little trick, go to the next motor mount, or body mount, stick a crowbar in there and just kind of crank it a little bit up just so you can squeeze this one in. Okay, because you can see it's quite tight now, and I still got to put the bolt in. So don't make the same mistake that I did and forget to use Loctites on the bolts, because yeah, I'm gonna have to pull these out and do that now. So I've got my torque wrench ready to go. Torque wrench? Yeah, my brain's not working. Set to 75, and I'm gonna go ahead and torque these bolts from front to back. Doesn't really matter which order. But yeah, let's get that done. There's 75. That's all 6 done on the passenger side. So I'm going to have a quick look just to see how things are lining up so far. Let's have a look at the front end first. Okay, so you can see the distance between the bumper and the chrome grille. I can't even stick a finger in there. On the other side, quite a bit of room. Alright, so it's definitely making a huge difference. That'll obviously even out when I put that side in. And this side will probably come down a little bit. Now before I start it up, basically what I want to do here is just kind of adjust it over a bit so I have more room on this side. But before I start it up, I'm just going to grab the fan, make sure it's freewheeling. Okay, there's no rubbing going on, so we know everything's good there. Let's have a look at the back. There's the gap under the door on the right side. And on the left side, quite a bit smaller. So, the other benefit here is that my camera won't see the bottom of the tire anymore. That's kind of nice. Okay, let's measure. Before lifting the driver's side, we're going to have a look here. So in between the bottom of the well and the tire, we have just shy of 6 inches. So call it 5 3/4 on the front. And distance between the fender and the tire here. These are 35-inch, by the way. That is 3 inches. They're extremely scientific method here. On the back, we have about 6 1/8. Let's check the other side. Alright, we got about 7 1/2. That's a huge improvement. Keep in mind that the body's kind of leaning over to the left right now. And 7 1/2. Perfect. Distance between the fender and the tire was 3 on the other side. Here it's barely any different, so 3 1/4. That's gonna mean all the difference for me because I was rubbing on the inside of the fenders, and just that 1/4 inch should take care of that problem. All right, let's lift the other. This is all put in. So some final thoughts. Again, make sure you are checking the fan before you fire up the vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And again, this is a two-handed job. All right, so checking the fan. Fan spins freely. Another thing to note is when you are rotating the fan shroud, make sure that the second little bump like this gets to the top, not the first little bump. That was a mistake that I made, and I almost caused a major problem. I didn't start the truck or anything, but I did check the fan ahead of time, and it was stuck, so I had to pull it again. To line it up. So the second bump, second one of these that you see on the fan shroud has to be at the top. First one as it slides over continues down. Okay. All right. So next thing would be the bolts. So again, they were M14, 160 millimeter. Don't forget to use thread locker. What else? Oh, when you're jacking up the driver's side of the truck, it's a little bit more difficult. I had to use a combination of a 4x4 block and a 2x4 to squeeze past the brake line, not the emergency brake line, that is. So you'll notice here's the emergency brake line. There's that little spot that we jacked up on. Also, as the brake line passes this body mount, be careful that the line doesn't get caught here as you're lifting the truck. So I noticed it as I was lifting, and I kind of pulled it around and shoved it inside there. Also, what I'd recommend is start at the back with the pucks and move your way forward. Reason being is because when you jack it up on this spot, the truck will actually bias a little bit to the front, so the back won't come up. Sorry, it'll bias towards the back, so the back won't come up as quickly as the front. So keep that in mind when starting your pucks. Start the back one first, and then move forward. It's a little bit easier. All right, so hopefully that gives you a good idea. As far as the total cost involved, it was about $70. Taxes in, that's Canadian. The bolts were about 40 bucks, and then that piece of plastic was about 30 bucks. So super cheap lift. Took me, I'd say, about 2 hours, so not very long at all. So hopefully this works out for you, and you like this video, and subscribe, and be very happy if you did so. All right, take care, have a great day, enjoy.